Come on, baby. Come on. You can do it. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and welcome to Justin's Basement. It's been a long time since I posted a video, guys. It's been about 6 months since I've filmed. I'm so parched. Hold on, just give me a second. It's been about 6 months since I've posted a video on either channel. As you can see, it looks a little bit different behind me. I built a new set. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think I'll ever be done tweaking it, but I'm pretty stoked on this set. I wanted to go for kind of a wacky Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of a vibe. I think I have achieved it, but you are officially now in my basement, so you can't leave, and you'll be stuck here forever while I make you watch shitty movies over and over again. Some good ones, but mainly shitty movies. But the reason I grabbed Pete and gathered us all here today is because I wanted to talk about my favorite movie of each year of the 80s. My buddy Planet CHH, Christian Hanna Horror, as he used to be known, did a video, and I thought it would be a really good idea, so I asked his permission to steal his idea. He gave me his good graces, so here I am. I'm looking at about, there should be 9 movies, 89 through 80, but I'm looking at about 17 or 18 movies because I was giving shit to Christian about, I think he had a 4-way tie for one of his years. But when I went to do my list, I see how it becomes a problem because there's a couple of these years where it's like, how do you pick, out of all these movies, how do you pick just one? It's fucking impossible. But I did manage to stick to just one movie, and I cheated with a little loophole, the honorable mention loophole. So after Pete, you're really chilling, dude. You don't look very comfortable. So after I name my movie for each year, I'll go through and I'll mention just a couple of other movies. Now, those who are familiar with my channel know that I have a pretty wacky taste in movies. I like everything from, The Green Knight or a pretentious A24 movie to Microwave Massacre. Spoiler alert, Microwave Massacre is in this list next to like a seminal classic, but that's the way we roll when you're in Justin's basement. So guys, grab a snack, grab a tasty beverage, and let's go ahead and go through some movies. I'm really excited to do this one. This is just gonna be a very chill, casual video. So I would love if you guys wanted to drop your list down in the comments. I wanna know your list. Let me know what your favorite movie of each year of the 80s is. Of course, I'm gonna do mine. I'm gonna start out at 1989, and then we'll go all the way down to 1980, which holds the title for my personal favorite horror movie of all time. Along with, I paired my 1980 movie with an undiscovered, it was undiscovered for me, only for the first time, from a Vinegar Syndrome purchase. So I can't wait to talk about that alongside with my favorite movie from 1980. So I hope this will be a little bit outside of the box list. Please do not roast me too hard on my selections. These are my selections. I don't roast you for your shitty taste in movies, so don't roast me for mine, okay? Sound good? Capiche? Let's go. We're gonna talk about 1989, my favorite movie from 1989, and a couple of runner-ups. Petey, I'm gonna have to respectfully ask you to get down so I can talk about these. What do you think? Would you mind? So, to kick things off, so to speak, we're going to start at, of course, 1989. And my favorite movie, my top movie, wasn't even a question. Ooh, keep those comments. Oh, I'm going to get roasted so hard. 1989, my favorite movie is Sleepaway Camp 3. I love Sleepaway Camp 1, 2, and 3, but there is something so unhinged and crazy about part 3. If you think Sleepaway Camp 1 has some just crazy moments that would only happen in the 80s, then you definitely need to get a load of Sleepaway Camp 3 because it is the most off-the-wall, politically incorrect, wacky, ridiculous movie. The gore kind of sucks in it. There's not a lot of great gore, but the casting in this and some of the subject matter and just the off the beaten path places that this movie goes is so far removed from the first one, which seems impossible, right? Because the first one's so weird and crazy and of its time.
Where I come from, we call them baldies. Makes your mouth water, don't it?
Sleepaway Camp 3 is is easily the wildest movie in the bunch. You have Pamela Springsteen returning. They filmed Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 back to back. They just kind of, they have a similar tone, but because they were filmed together, but they're different movies. Sleepaway Camp 3 is its own beast. And for my runners up, I decided to go with Society, also from 1989. This is just an absolutely bonkers, crazy movie. What's great about Society is if you're a fan of practical effects, you love the practical effects, the makeup effects, and the Substance, or The Thing, or The Fly. This movie is on par with those, and the ending finale scene, the shunting scene of Society it's almost unmatched in its weirdness and its gooiness and its sliminess. Underground society of very wealthy people that get up to some pretty wacky, slimy shit. And it's crazy. And I also wanted to include Intruder, starring the one and only Sam Raimi. This is a wacky little movie. It's a horror. It's a grocery store slasher, but the kills are super creative. It's very, very run and gun, low budget, micro budget movie, but it's a lot of fun. I picked up this edition from Umbrella Entertainment. Really nice edition. If you haven't seen Intruder or Society, definitely check them out. And if you haven't seen Sleepaway Camp 3, proceed with caution, but definitely check it out, because if you're into wacky 80s shit, it's a classic. It's great. Check out Pet Sematary 3. Sleepaway Camp 3. Now that I'm looking at my short list for 1989, I forgot Pet Sematary, and now I'm realizing that I did in fact pick Sleepaway Camp 3 over Pet Sematary as the best movie from 1989, but I'm okay with that. I'm a Pet Sematary 2 guy. That's my favorite in the franchise. Pet Sematary is great, but it's very dark, it's very moody, it's very sad. It's not something that I want to pop on and watch all the time, okay? So we're going for rewatch value. So yes, Sleepaway Camp 3 beat Pet Sematary. What do you think about that, Pete? Pet Sematary, rough subject, I get it. And bringing us into 1988 is the movie you see playing behind me, and that is the Frank Henenlotter classic, Brain Damage. Now, this is my personal favorite Frank Henenlotter movie. I think it's his best, most well-made movie. It looks great. It's got this amazing blue hue. It's a neon glowing movie, and it's really, really weird. It's about an alien, a phallic alien named Aylmer, who is discovered by our young lead, Brian. Now, when you encounter Aylmer, he's a friendly guy. He's got a nice TV host voice, and he's very friendly, but he wants you to do something for him, okay? He needs you to he needs you to get people so he can eat their brains, all right? But what he's gonna do for you is hook to the back of your neck and inject you with hallucinogenic blue Windex-looking liquid. So at least while you're assisting in a brain-eating alien, you get to trip balls while you're doing it. So 1988, my top pick is Brain Damage. Our runners-up, first off, is Night of the Demons. Now, this was really close. Between a couple of the movies on here, this year and one other year were probably the hardest to just settle on one, but I love Night of the Demons, practical effects, the 80s feel, Linnea Quigley.
Do you guys have sour balls?
Why, sure we do.
Too bad. I bet you don't get many blowjobs.
It's a fantastic movie. Return of the Living Dead 2 was also an honorable mention. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Return of the Living Dead 2. And then, of course, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But for me, like I said, I'm going by rewatch, so I just had to pick Brain Damage because I think it's such a cool little movie. Frank Henenlotter also did Basket Case, and he did some other wacky little movies. I love Brain Damage, so that's my pick for 1988. Now, cruising along in our Delta 88 to the grand old year of 1987. You may have caught the hint right there. Of course, if I'm mentioning a Delta 88, I'm going to be talking about Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is my pick for the best movie of 1987. I won't say the best, my personal favorite and most rewatchable from 1987 is Evil Dead 2. What else can be said about Evil Dead 2 that hasn't been said 50,000 million hundred times? Yes, that is an actual number. Evil Dead 2 is great. I love it. We do have some runner-up movies that I'm actually more excited to talk about. Of course, Lost Boys is great. It didn't make the cut. I find myself, I couldn't look away from Evil Dead 2. So unfortunately, Lost Boys, and that's really crazy. That's really tough. That is almost one of those where a tie is almost like It's almost required, but I just can't do it. So I'm gonna do Evil Dead 2. It edges out Lost Boys just fucking barely, though it almost seems sacrilegious. I love Lost Boys. Now moving on to the rest of the honorable mentions here. Slumber Party Massacre 2. I couldn't talk about 87 without talking about Slumber Party Massacre 2. Great practical effects. It's essentially a horror comedy, but you got the drill guitar. You got the girl's dream sequence with a zit popping. It's such a fun little movie. The super cute girl from that show, Wings, I always had a big crush on her. The casting's great, the performances are great, it's super silly, you don't take it too seriously, but Slumber Party Massacre is great. And the next two, you definitely don't take super seriously, and that is Doom Asylum, which I love this. I'm doing the honorable mentions so I can mention some of the dumber movies in these eras instead of just talking about these, like, you know, super popular ones. Doom Asylum is great. I got a release from Arrow Video here. It stars one of the girls from Sex and the City. Official description: when a group of horny teens wind up on the grounds of a creepy abandoned asylum, they think they've found the perfect place to party. Little do they know that inside the building's crumbling walls lurks a freakishly deformed maniac, driven to madness by the tragic loss of his fiancée. The makeup is terrible, the performances are bad. It's such a weird movie, but I love it. I love me a bad slasher, and this is definitely like top tier, like B, C grade slashers. This is definitely entertaining. I love it. And one of my favorite, I'm gonna be honest with you. It was hard to not put this specific movie as my number one pick above Evil Dead fucking 2. Because I rewatched this movie so much. I love it. Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, and Brink Stevens. They start out as nerds, and then they somehow get turned into these evil succubus creatures that start killing these guys they invited over for dates. It's so dumb, it's so bad, it's so poorly shot, but it's just classic 80s excess. Just three completely butt-naked chicks throughout the whole movie for no reason. They're basically naked throughout the whole movie for no reason, and we gotta love it. Now moving on to 1986, and this was probably the hardest year of this entire list. 86 is just a really, really tough year, but we have some classics here. I have a bunch of honorable mentions that I'm gonna blow through quickly, but we gotta talk about the number one of the year, and that's The Fly. David Cronenberg's The Fly. I actually just rewatched this not too long ago, and it surprises me every time I rewatch this movie. It almost gets better every time. Like, I find some new weird, gross part, or some performance quirk, or a little scene that I didn't really pay a lot of mind to upon other rewatches. It just gets better with each watch. Jeff Goldblum's performance, nobody else could have played this role. Gina Davis is great. It's gross and slimy, and it's a cool story about a guy trying to perfect a teleportation system, but of course it goes awry, and when a fly gets into the teleportation system, and they sort of meld together to perform the Brundlefly, and it's so good. Gina Davis is great. I love this movie, and it's sad. It's so sad, you know, because it's kind of a love story at the same time. Next up, we have From Beyond, the H.P. Lovecraft story directed by Stuart Gordon, starring Jeffrey Combs and my one and only love, Barbara Crampton. Super whacked out, trippy neon movie about kind of finding your third eye, so to speak, expanding consciousness into the physical realm almost, with weird little... This movie's weird, guys. Another one that I wanted to bring up is Demons 2, which also came out in 1986. And if you haven't seen Demons, first off, watch Demons. It's such a cool little Italian horror movie taking place in a movie theater, which is a cool setting for horror. And then they made the sequel, which is equally as great. I highly recommend these. Definitely check out Demons 2. Critters, of course, the creature feature Critters. I am a massive, massive fan of Troma Entertainment, so Class of Nukem High is another one I wanted to highlight from 1986. Such a whacked out little weird little Lloyd Kaufman movie. And is that it? April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day, also from 1986. The movie that just keeps on twisting and twisting and twisting. And by the time you think you've reached the last twist, it just keeps going and just kind of tricking you as these people get together and they start doing these April Fool's Day pranks. Super fun movie from 1986, but my ultimate pick is The Fly. Moving on now to 1985. This was another tough year with some really good movies. Ultimately, I landed on Reanimator as my top movie of 1985. Another movie that just has some of the most spectacular practical effects ever put to screen. Once this movie gets going, it just doesn't stop. It follows Jeffrey Combs as a doctor who's trying to find life beyond death. Can we take a dead person and bring them back to life? And the answer is yes, but will they be the same? The answer is no. So, of course, havoc ensues after all of the people start coming back and the practical effects are crazy. And then we have yet another Barbara Crampton movie. We see a pattern with me and Barbara Crampton. I love her. And going through my honorable mentions, we had Return of the Living Dead, Demons, and Fright Night. I love the original Return of the Living Dead. Again, it's so of its time. That's what's so great about these 80s movies, from the punk rock soundtrack and aesthetic of the characters in the movie to the practical effects. We have the first time, you know, the lore of zombies screaming brains and eating brains kind of was brought into the culture of zombies. And it's just fantastic. Next up is Demons. I already talked about that in the other one. If you haven't seen Demons, check it out. And of course, Fright Night. Maybe even a little bit over Lost Boys. My podcast, The Rad Pack, did do a versus episode of Lost Boys versus Fright Night. I won't spoil the winner, but I personally am a Fright Night fan, and it's a great movie. So imagine a lot of people had at least one of these handful of movies as their number one. I can see a lot of people having Fright Night as their number one of 1985, but those are my favorites of 1985. Moving on to 1984 is when I start to get a little kooky with my choices and people are going to start looking at me sideways. But my 1984 movie, my favorite 1984 movie, is the one and only Toxic Avenger. I have a real respect for Lloyd Kaufman. I think the man is a genius in his own right. Pioneered independent film in a way very, very few people, maybe Roger Corman, him and Lloyd Kaufman would have a lot to talk about. How hard it is to make these movies, even if they're micro budget. I believe that Troma Entertainment is the longest running independent film production company in history, or at least in America. So I can't get enough of a Toxic Avenger. The remake comes out in September of this year, which I'm really, really excited about. So I can't wait to check that out. My honorable mentions, Gremlins. Yes, Toxic Avenger beat out Gremlins and Nightmare on Elm Street. Sorry about it. That's just the way I feel. You put Toxic Avenger next to Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm picking Toxic Avenger. Maybe some of the sequels I might put above this, but as far as the first Nightmare on Elm Street, it just doesn't edge out Toxic Avenger for me. What can I say? You know what I mean? And then another one that I wanted to mention, as far as, I haven't even opened this one. I saw this for the first time at Panic Fest with a crowd. And actually, it wasn't Panic Fest, but it was a retro screening I saw it at for the first time. Man, what a cool movie and an interesting premise. We have sort of a zombie, a take on the zombie film, but it involves a comet going over LA. So the comet goes over the city and this group of teenagers wakes up to, if anybody has not been eradicated or poofed away by the comet, they've now turned into zombies. And there's a lot of mall scenes, and it's shot really cool. It's such an interesting movie, and I love 80s mall aesthetic. So if you love mall horror and you love the mall aesthetic and you love zombie flicks, and you love hot chicks, then you're gonna love Night of the Comet. Check it out. It's really, really top tier movie. And moving on to 1983. Guys, my pick is Sleepaway Camp, the original. This is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I'm not sure how big I know Sleepaway Camp has a big cult following, but I'm not sure how many people have it on the tops of their list. It seems to be kind of a little bit of a kind of a hit or miss for some people. It is a very weird movie, but I find it so just infinitely watchable. There is not a time that I couldn't sit down and watch Sleepaway Camp and have a great time with it. It's has a lot of bizarre choices. The ending, of course, is just absolutely fucking bonkers, crazy. It's such a weird little movie that just couldn't be made, at least in the same way that it was now. But that's my number one. And this video is getting a little long, so let's go ahead and cruise through these. The next runner-up is Cujo, a movie based on a Stephen King book about a dog who gets rabies and terrorizes his own family. This beloved Saint Bernard, the sweetest dog ever, gets rabies and he turns on his family. It's tragic in a way. It is, of course, it's a horror movie and it's an 80s horror movie, so there are some, I guess, maybe some dated elements of it, but I'll tell you what, man. The way they filmed it, the dog is very intimidating and you really feel the fear of this family and also just the sadness. I think I could take Pete in a fight, but imagine your beloved family dog gets rabies and is just hell-bent on killing you. It's just absolutely tragic. Next up is Christine. Probably my second favorite John Carpenter movie after The Thing. This movie is so vibey, and I'll tell you what, the 4K on this looks absolutely like stunning. It's one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen, especially the shots of the car when they're, you know, showing you close-ups of it and the way the light hits it. It's just like one of the clearest, crispiest 4K transfers I've ever seen. This guy who's kind of a nerd gets this car. The car kind of has a spirit and it kind of takes revenge on its owner's behalf. Killer car movie, it's great. Next up, Microwave Massacre is my next runner-up. I told you we would be talking about Microwave Massacre, and I'm not kidding. And this has one of the most just insane fun facts that I love telling people because nobody knows about this movie, and then they never know who the lead actor in the movie is. So the movie stars stand-up comedian and actor Jackie Vernon, okay? Jackie Vernon is the voice that you hear is Frosty the fucking Snowman in the classic cartoon, which is so crazy when you see this movie and you find out what it's about.
Jackie Vernon went from voicing America's favorite snowman to starring in a cannibal horror movie.
Donald unwittingly stumbles upon a solution to two major problems in his life, his nagging wife and his lack of decent meals. When one night he bludgeons his better half to death with a salt grinder in a drunken rage, thinking on his feet, Donald dismembers the body and sets about microwaving the remains, which turns out to be rather delicious. Trouble is, now he has a taste for human flesh that needs satisfying. This movie is so bizarre. The microwave that they use is like, it's just such a contraption. This is a weird little film. I cannot believe that it was released by Arrow Video, but it was, and I couldn't do this video without talking about Microwave Massacre. So now moving on to 1982. 2 more years left, guys, so let's go ahead and let's make sure I have them. We're gonna go ahead and talk about the number 1 movie, and that is Poltergeist. Now, this movie had some good company. We're up against The Thing, Creepshow, and Basket Case, which are my other runner-ups for this, but I had to go for Poltergeist because it truly is. This is one of these movies that I remember watching as a kid and watching it so many times, so when you revisit this, I just remember every moment of this movie like it was yesterday. It's just ingrained in my brain. The bathroom scene, you know, the silhouette scene with the guy with his big old teeth. It's just, I don't know, it's just one of these classic movies where it's a perfect movie, perfectly edited, perfectly shot, perfectly cast. It's just such an amazing movie. Poltergeist, it was so hard picking between Poltergeist and The Thing. Ultimately, it did come down to rewatch value because Poltergeist to me is a little bit more fun. This is a little bit more intense, but the practical effects are so good. These guys are in Antarctica, I think, is where they're at. They're in Antarctica at a research station, and there's an alien there that takes control of people's bodies. But when it takes control of the body, you don't know, you can't see it. So you could have a group of 5 friends in a room, and one of them has the alien in them, and you just wouldn't know. Leading to the test sequence where they're testing the blood to see which one of them has the alien in it. That's one of the most suspenseful scenes I've ever seen in any movie. But The Thing is great. I love it. Didn't quite make the number 1 spot, but it's an honorable mention alongside 2 other great movies, Creepshow and Basket Case. Basket Case is another Frank Henenlotter movie about a guy who has a conjoined twin who they separate, but somehow they find each other again and they become little buddies, and he keeps his cut off conjoined twin in a basket. And it's great. Great little movie. And Creepshow, one of the best anthology movies of all time. My number one pick for 81 is An American Werewolf in Paris. You know, when I set out this list, I didn't know if every one of my picks would be like one of the main classics, you know, like Poltergeist or whatever, The Fly. But sometimes in a year, the best movie is the best movie for a reason. And there's a reason this is such a classic and it's so well respected, because it is just one of the best werewolf horror movies ever made. John Landis, say what you will about him, he made a great movie, and of course the effects from Rick Baker are just incredible. But I also wanted to mention in my honorable mentions The Burning, which is a great early slasher. How I think it was the first movie produced by the Weinstein brothers. George Costanza is in this movie with hair. He looks as he did in the McDonald's commercial that he did.
I'm talking quarter pound of beef on the hot side. And the hot stays hot.
The Burning is a great summertime camp slasher. My other honorable mentions being Evil Dead. It didn't quite make the number one spot, but I had to at least mention it so people aren't too mad at me. And then the other random, super random movie that I wanted to talk about from 1981 is a movie starring Clint Howard called Evil Speak. This is a super crazy little movie about Clint Howard. I don't even know really how you explain it, getting telekinetic powers essentially. And what an interesting casting choice, right? Clint Howard is such a character. If you haven't seen Evil Speak, check it out. I wanted to at least mention it in here because it is so bizarre. I think the first time I saw it was on an episode of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, and I loved it. Super weird. Check it out. And now finally, in the coveted 1980 spot, the number one movie for me in 1980 is The Shining, which is also my favorite horror film of all time. I watch this movie in some capacity. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll watch. It's not every time that I sit down and I just watch it from beginning to end, but probably 2 or 3 times a month when I just need something on the screen. This is what I put on. This is playing on my TV probably 2, 3, 4 times a month. If I'm looking at shit on my phone, or if I'm editing something, or I'm just hanging out, you know, whatever, The Shining is on. I cannot stop watching this movie. It's like kind of a weird addiction that I have to this movie. I love it. It's just so well crafted and eerie, and the performance, Jack Nicholson is so good. Shelley Duvall's so good. I'm not one who dives into all the weird conspiracy theories about The Shining, but it's interesting to talk about. So The Shining is going to be my number one fucking great movie. Long live The Shining. And I only have one honorable mention, but I did want to mention this one because this was a blind buy for me from Vinegar Syndrome a few years ago. And I just fell in love with this movie. I don't know what it was about it, whether it's me relating to the character, this movie-obsessed character, just the eerie vibe of the movie or the performance. I can't really put my finger on what makes this movie so good, but it just is. It's a guy that works as a courier in a film factory back in the day where they actually had to like take a physical reel of film and take it to a theater down the road or whatever. And he's just obsessed with movies. His mom's a complete bitch that doesn't understand him, doesn't understand why he watches these movies. But he's also really picked on and bullied by a few people, and it ends up turning into a revenge flick. But for each revenge that he takes on each individual person, he kind of takes on the persona of somebody that he idolizes in a film in a somewhat unhealthy way. So you get all these, he kind of acts like a vampire, he acts like a cowboy, and he does all these weird things. But the way it's shot and the way it's presented and the soundtrack, it's creepy and weird and moody and sad at the end. Because he's just a sad little movie guy that got fucked with too many times. Fade to Black is an amazing movie. I highly recommend it. I wouldn't boil it down to just being a revenge flick. It's a character study of a broken person who just kind of reaches his breaking point, and the whole movie element added to that makes it just a movie nerd's kind of dream kind of slasher. If you can call it a slasher. It's not really a slasher, but let me help you. That is it, guys. That's going to be a hell of an edit that I'm gonna have to do. I did not mean to be rambling for that long. Ugh. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop your favorite movie from each year of the 80s in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the new set. And I'm a little rusty. It was a little rusty getting back into recording a video, but I'm glad to be recording again. So many videos to come on this channel and my other one, Justin David. But that is it. You have been inside Justin's basement and you are now stuck here. So go find yourself something to do, okay? Okay, say bye, Pete. Okay, so guys, that is all. I think we're done here. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Fucking subscribe.